Oh, cool. Starting a new video with new, better sounding audio where I don't have to wear my headset. And just quickly before I start the video, if anyone has any understanding of how to use OBS and Blue Yeti microphones, please write in the comments or message me on Discord. Because it took like an hour to set up the way it sounds right now. That shows you how little I have skills in this. And that was a lot of scrolling online and everything. But yeah, please, anyone, I will be very grateful for the help. This is me generally trying my best to sound there to give the best audio quality and the best quality content I can. But going into the video, so yeah, set 8 is literally around the corner. It's tomorrow. I still have one more set 7 event, so my head is fairly in set 7 still. I will be playing at the UK Games Expo. I'll be playing One Piece on the Friday, then Lorcana on the Saturday, and then the Sunday we'll see what we want to do. But still set 8 is always going to be there. I'm sure we're all going to talk about set 8 when we're at the event as well, and sort of where we think the direction of the meta is going to be. I think personally, it's well not going to change hugely. I think a lot of decks got a lot of high rolls, got a lot more cards to make themselves a bit more efficient, and I think we're setting up mainly for the post rotation. Once we see what cards we get to keep, what cards we don't, that will be the big kind of time when the big changes happen. But for set 8, it'll be this weird set where it's an overlap of cards that were put into the game to prepare us for the post rotation. I think Beyond the Horizon is very similar to that. If say they cut Whole New World, a card like Beyond the Horizon fills and does a very similar job to that. But right now you could play both Beyond the Horizon and you could play Whole New World, giving you sort of this interesting builds that we're seeing right now. I think a lot of people think Beyond the Horizon is going to just like completely change the game. I'm yet to see them add a Lorcana card in a set that completely changed the game. The only thing they ever really did was, Bucky was in the game since set 2. Okay, I can use previous examples. Bucky was in the set since set 2, but was never great until about set 3 or 4. He was great when they amassed enough Floodborns for him to be a very viable card to play in a very good deck. And the same with like Tamatoa, the 6-cost one in set 7, and the Scrooge McDuck in set 7. The cards, whenever the whole item thing was great. It had its viability. It was being played a lot. Ruby Sapphire was played a lot until it amassed to a point where it was just too many things going on. And they had to basically put a ban in Hiram because Hiram was kind of the glue that kept all of that amazing stuff together. But to be honest with you, there's never really been like a card they released, and while the whole meta entirely changed, there's been very good cards where they get added and they just stick. So you've got Maui Shark. I don't think the entire meta changed the minute Maui Shark was added to the game. I still felt like everyone was still playing the decks they wanted to. I was still playing Sapphire Steel. People were still playing their Amber Steels. People were still playing their Ruby Amethyst. They were just including Maui Shark into it. And I think we've got cards like that as well. I think the main one I really want to just focus in on is Beyond the Horizon, because I think everything else that I could talk about, I quite like Desperate Plan, I quite like Arthur. In my, I've got 2 lists to just prompt on the screen. In my Sapphire Steel, I think they're awesome cards. I think they make the list a bit more efficient and a bit better at what they do. But I don't think overall they're the cards that are like gonna really bring the like sort of decks together and make it this overpowered machine. I don't think that's what they do. And the same with like the what's it called? In Amber Steel, they've got cards like the Rhino, the 4-cost that's a Floodborn. Has resist +2 until you have damage on it. I don't think they're like insanely broken, but I think what they do is they just put quite a bit more life into Amber Steel aggro. The dock builds will probably come back in quite a lot of force. Things like that. I think red, green, had some cool cards. They've got the Lilo that I think people calling Freelo, which is when you play free actions, you get to play her for free. I think they're all awesome cards. I just don't think they're big enough to, change the entire meta. And now that red green will be on top, I think red green will see more play. I think it will just be, a bit more viable than it was before because they've got some better cards, but that's about it really. And the same, I think, in my opinion, we've got some really good cards like the Amber card for the Lady card that when you play it, you can play a 2-cost or less for free. So you can play that in Cherna Dogs, you can play that in Amber Steel aggro. Again, they just got some really cool cards, but the entire meta would not shift around and change completely for that one card. That one card would have to do a bunch of mega amazing things. It's usually in a mass of cards that create new decks and create new metas, like we saw with pre-ban Sapphire set 7 with Sapphire Steel and Ruby Sapphire. It was a massive items, good ways to interact with those items, good ways to use them that made it into the meta like morphing state that we had at that point. And the same with Bucky. You know, it was around in set 2. People played it in set 2 and it kind of sucked because it was really Bucky or bust. But by that point, you know, by set 3, set 4, you know, we had like Diablos. I mean, in set 3, people were playing their own version of Green Steel with Merfolk and Flynn. You know, they weren't playing the Bucky builds. And then we got the cards like Diablo, and we got like just way more Bloodborns that you could put. You got your morphs and stuff like that to access those Bloodborns. You just got tons of cards that amassed to a point where it made a really powerful deck. So I think that, yeah, it looks like Amber Steel aggro and Chernodogs are amassing better cards. You know, Amber Steel aggro got Rhino, it got that Lady card. But I don't think overall it's going to be meta warfing. I just think, yeah, they're just going to have loads of fun cards to play with. And I think that's the direction it's going to go in. You know, in set 8, we're going to have insane high rolls, like these the biggest card pool we're going to have in Lorcana ever. So tons of viable options, tons of different directions to go with the decks. But I think overall, you know, if you're a Kiwi player, you're still probably going to play Kiwi. If you're a Chandogs player and you've been enjoying that deck, you're probably still going to play it. I'm pretty sure Ruby Amethyst players are probably going to still stick around and play their Ruby Amethyst deck. They got some fun new additions to test out with the Mother Gothel 2-drop that deals 2 damage and gives it a plus challenger, and it also bounces back to hand. You know, loads of cool different things. I've seen the moving damage counter builds as well. They seem really fun. Like, I'm pretty sure they could be a bit more viable. And as I mentioned before, like red green feels like it's a bit better. I think even green blue might have got some more cards, but I never really give that deck that much to the time of day. So I'm a bit sorry about that. But the card that has the biggest chance to impact the meta, like I say, it's not gonna completely change the meta, but the card that impacts it the most is Beyond the Horizon. And as I can say, I think it's a card that would prep for if Whole New World was to be removed from the game. I'm actually kind of skeptical if they remove Whole New World, I'm honest with you, because we have Whole New World being the promo card for the end of world for Worlds, and it just kind of feels weird to rotate it out at that point. But it wouldn't, you know, it's just not how I've seen it done in other TCGs, and not how I expect it to be done. But you know, I think there's still probably a fairly high possibility they do rotate that card out, because it's not it's kind of a meta, that is a bit of a meta warping card. A lot of decks are built around it. You know, we've had Sapphire Steel, Amber Steel built around it, like mill decks were using it. You know, it does define things. You always have to play into it and play around it and think about it when in your matchup. So if they were to remove that from the game, you know, it would really change things. I think Beyond the Horizon's quite an interesting one as well. It's a different take on that Whole New World, like refresh your hand, draw some cards type card. But the main thing is that, you know, I think discard and what's it called? Like Amber Steel, just general Amber Steel, they both can use these cards very efficiently. We'll talk about the Amber Steel one first. You know, they have the ability to set up strong singers. If you were to play Cindy turn 1, play Ursula turn 2, you could sing Beyond the Horizon. And, you know, people have gone even further and say, well, if you only sing it on your opponent, then you have Forgotten Me and play that. You can drop them down to 1 card in hand for the rest of the game. Of course, I don't think that's that amazing, because, you know, if you're playing against a purple deck, eventually they're going to go, right, I'm always just going to save that 1 card to be a rabbit, or be a friends on the other side, or be some sort of way to basically regain my hand size, because when you pass the turn back, they'll be on 2 cards again because they draw for turn. And if they play a rabbit, an ink, or whatever, it's like, yeah, that was a really high roll, awesome play, but you didn't gain any lore that turn, and you didn't set up anything stronger than the 2 singers that you have on board anyway. So I think that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty useful. Like, it's gonna be in the game. I think people are gonna play it, but it might not be this huge thing in Amber Steel. In testing though, I'll imagine in Green Steel, you know, when you've got you can set up a Prince John, and then you can set up a Muses, and you can sing Beyond the Horizon, you can bounce things back to hand, you can discard, you actually get the discard draw from Prince John, as well as the disruption. And then you can have free ink to play something that turn if you wanted to, play something stronger. Like you could play Chip straight afterwards, which is when you play this card, your opponent discards a card. You know, you could just do, I think it just fits that deck quite a lot. And I think all of the points that people are making are very valid. It's kind of like just adding another high roll. This is the points I've had mainly in testing, is it's just adding another high roll to the deck that already has like a bunch of high rolls. Like, that deck can beat you with, you know, Diablo Shift, Move Cove, and then start singing Let the Storm, start singing Strength for the Raging Fire. It can morph shift that beast and just run over you. It can get this Space Pirate Pete out quite early and lock out a bunch of decks. It can now do this combo where it sets these things up. And in this combo that I just mentioned with Prince John, Muses, and Beyond the Horizon, that does include 2 uninkable cards, and one's a song. So against green, it could snatch that song, or you can play Pete to lock them out. So again, it's a high roll play. I'm pretty sure, in my opinion, when you play green still, the deck kind of just feels like a mass of tons of high rolls put into one deck. And the only time I ever seem to lose with green steel is when I don't get my high rolls in the right order, or I don't get my cards in the right order. If you have Diablo Shift Move Cove, you just win the game. But sometimes you mulligan and you don't get the 1-drop, you don't even get a morph, and you don't play anything till turn 3, and you've lost the game. So it's just a deck that's got like a massive high rolls in it, and I think playing Beyond the Horizon is just another high roll into that. I think as well that the first instant view of it was like, how does purple decks or like a red purple or ruby sapphire kind of survive in a world where they can discard your entire hand and make you draw 3 and then maybe discard the other 3, or just keep giving you constant disruption. If you had this and you had Whole New World and an Amber Steel, how could you ever like be certain the cards in your hand stick? And like you might need to be inking, or like might need to be holding on to those cards. You might be holding on to your Be Prepared or your Sisu's or your Lady Tremaine. So I think it's just adding another high roll to the deck and adding another high roll to the game, to kind of disrupt us all, which is quite good. I think a card like Beyond the Horizon, when I first saw it, it reminded very much of Judge from Pokemon, which was just both players shuffle their cards into their deck and draw 4 new cards. Sometimes disruption is very good. If you're playing a low to the ground deck, or a deck that's not going to have these big, huge threats like Sisu and like Maui Shark, instead what you want to be doing is saying, I'm going to disrupt you. So playing them efficiently is just a very hard role, a very hard task for you to do. So yeah, I see this card definitely having a place in the meta. I think it is also this weird overlap where we've got so many cards in the current pool that work, and we just know they work, and we're going to keep playing them. And we've got all these new fun cards coming out, like Beyond the Horizon, and they've got uninkable counts. And a lot of decks already have their staple uninkable counts, like I'm mentioning Green Steel right now. They've got their 4 Diablos, they've got their 4 Prince Johns. They probably wouldn't cut 4 Let the Storm Rage on. Or maybe they go down to certain counts, 3 counts on any of those 3 cards I mentioned, but they've already got a high uninkable count, and they know those cards work in that deck. They just are. So trying to fit a new uninkable into the deck is always hard. Like the cards I find that stick very easily are just inkables. Like Maui Shark is very easily an easy add to any list. Even if you are gonna, even I think at the start when people were playing that card, they played at a lower count of like 1 or 2, and you could do that compared to now where you've got the DKP list where you can play 4 of them and you just fully go in on that card. Whereas, yeah, uninkables, it's very hard to fit into a list which is already established. We already know it works. Do we really need to change it up too much, and try something new? There are crazy deck builders that do that. They completely. I'm always a sort of deck builder that builds, sort of from what I currently have onwards. So I like to see what cards I can add and improve the list. Whereas a lot of other deck builders start completely from scratch and see how they can build on something new, like a card like Beyond the Horizon. So I think it's very interesting for those points. But this is why I say it's sad to say we're not even into Jafar yet, but it's already this big discussion on what's going to happen in post rotation, like where we're going to get to in rotation. So I think a lot of these cards are just prepping for it. It's not uncommon in card games. The set prior to the rotation, they release a bunch of cards that will be very good post rotation. That's quite a common thing they'll do. And I feel like that's a lot of Jafar in this set. And that also just means that you have this crazy card pool set like this one where like there's just overlap and there's loads of things going on. But I think it's going to be really fun. And as I say, I think the Green Steel players is probably still going to play Green Steel. Ruby Amethyst players, Ruby Sapphire players, Kiwi players, everyone's still going to play the decks they play. Some cards got some better high rolls, got some more efficient cards. Besides Beyond the Horizon saying it's this really awesome high roll that is going to just win people a lot of games. A lot of the other cards that I mentioned, what are they called, like Rhino, Arthur, Desperate Plan. Desperate Plan is probably my favorite card of the set as well. I want enchanters of that, but these cards, I don't think they do anything amazing. They just kind of efficiently improve the deck. I think Desperate Plan increases Kiwi's ability to dump and then like draw off a card, like so it just increases their dock draw chances. And I can say that because I've been playing a lot of set 8, and then I had to play some set 7 to prepare for UK Games Expo, and being on the top deck hoping that you draw one dock out of your 4 docks is quite brutal when you could increase that to up to possibly 8 cards that refill your hand if you put 4 desperate pans. They're only running 2 right now, but if you were able to add more, I mean, I found like 6 has been fine. 6 like top deck chances to go, and I refill my entire hand. But yeah, besides Beyond the Horizon, it just feels like nothing really got anything amazingly broken. No one got a mass of cards that are going to be super powerful. But Green still just got a better high roll. Amber still got better abilities to refill the hand as well. I think those are the 2 decks what will utilize it the most. I have seen some Sapphire Steel wheel lists, and they're using cards like Vinny, who's like a 7 cost who could sing this straight out. Namari, who's pretty cool because she could filter you through to those whole new worlds and sing them again. But I don't particularly see that coming back as that meta viable, sadly. At least not in set 8. So yeah, that's kind of my predictions for the set 8, which is in the end is very dull. It's just saying it's probably going to be the same thing, just cards got more efficient cards at what they want to do, and then Beyond the Horizon can be these insane high roll plays that we're about to see. And I think as well as a card where people, the more we play, the more people learn how to play into it, play around it, play with it. There were cards in the past like we still run Calhoun in Kiwi, but in set 8 I've completely dropped that card. And one of the reasons is just at the start when Calhoun was out, I think she was very broken. I think she was really powerful. Most people didn't play around her. They were like, well, I want my 1-drop purple Diablo to quest, and I'll just take the draw. And then you take it out and you get your 2 lore, and you're in a fairly good spot. But as games have gone on, it's pretty much near impossible for me to get Calhoun value out of anything to get it to get that 2 lore. Most of the time, it just quests for 2 and then trades with a fox, or gets buffed. Sorry, a crab buffs a Diablo and takes out, and no value at all really on that one. I'm playing this uninkable 2-drop. So yeah, I think cards like that are always very interesting, and as the game, like as the players learn, they'll go, all right, so I know that you've played Prince John into Muses. The most likely thing is you could play Beyond the Horizon, so I'm going to peat you, or I'm going to dump my hand so I don't get affected that much by the discard, and I can get the things that I want on the board. And even for me, like when I first time testing against it, they played Prince John, and I instantly played my 1 peat because I thought, I want to peat this turn because they had something else on board that could sing. And I just didn't want the sudden chill to be hit. And then they play the Muses the next turn. I'm like, great, because against Kiwi, that's not that powerful a line. Like I don't fear the Muses. It doesn't really have much to bounce besides my 1-drops. And then they sing Beyond the Horizon. They cut my entire hand, discarded. I got really far on card advantage, and I lost the game. And it's just learning those lines as well. So cards can become a little bit less more powerful when we know what we're up against and we know how to play around it. Even if this card was so busted, you could try the 4-cost Gantu again that stops people singing for a turn, and just give yourself another turn of locking them out of the game, and they're stuck with a 7-cost uninkable song in their hand. So yeah, I think this card will be the biggest splash in the meta, but overall I think we're looking at very much the same decks we've seen for the fast previous metas and sets, until we get the big rotation.